My millionaire son disowned me just days later. He was desperate for my help. The cold phone call shattered Helen's world. Her son Marcus was yelling, "You think you can control me, Mom? I'm done. You're out of my life." His words sliced through the silence, leaving echoes of disbelief in their wake. How could the boy she had cradled as a baby, the one she had watched grow, take such a harsh stand? The icy reality settled in her chest, a sharp ache that made it hard to breathe. Was it really over? Had he really turned his back on her after all these years? Days passed in a haze. Helen wandered through her empty house, filled with memories of laughter and joy that now felt like shadows. She flipped through family photos, each snapshot a reminder of the bond that had once seemed unbreakable. But Marcus had chosen his wealth over family, and the billion-dollar lifestyle had transformed him into a stranger. Gossip spread like wildfire in their small town. Whispers about the famous millionaire and his disavowed mother filled the air, thickening the atmosphere with contempt. Eyes followed her wherever she went, pity mingling with judgment. Then, just 3 days later, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. A lump formed in her throat as she answered, heart racing. "Mom, I need you." Marcus's voice trembled, panic flooding through the line. The boy who had disowned her was now desperate. Why? What could make the richest man in town call her? Of all people, seeking help. She was torn. Should she rush to his side or protect her own heart from more pain? Just then the doorbell rang, jolting her from her thoughts. She opened the door to find a delivery man with a strange glimmer in his eyes, holding a package addressed to Marcus. "Can you sign here, ma'am?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to appear from the shadows. Something inside her stirred. Was there a message within? A reason for his sudden call? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back inside, the package lay on the kitchen table like a ticking time bomb. She felt her gut twist with apprehension. What was inside? The room grew heavier with each passing second, the suspense clinging thick in the air. Helen reached for the scissors, hands trembling as she sliced through the tape. The lid popped open and her heart stopped. There, wrapped in crisp paper, lay a leather-bound journal, an ancient shield of secrets. What could this mean for them? What had Marcus uncovered? The clues were building, and she could barely breathe as the weight of the moment settled in. Where would this lead them both? Her fingers brushed the cover, worn with age, as the scent of leather and time wafted towards her. Helen felt an unexplainable connection to it, an eerie familiarity that sent chills down her spine. She glanced at the closed door, almost expecting Marcus to burst in and assure her he'd never turned away. But the silence loomed thick, and she was all alone. Taking a deep breath, she opened the journal. The pages were filled with meticulous handwriting, Marcus's writing. Bits of ink blotted here and there spoke of hurried thoughts. With each page she turned, the tension in her chest mounted. Lurking within were snippets of an elaborate story. Mentions of investments, secret meetings, and connections to people Helen had never heard of. Names jumped off the page, weaving a web that hinted at something far darker than she could comprehend. But then she read something that froze her blood. If they find out what I know, I'm done for. I must keep it hidden. Her heart raced. Who was they? And what was her son involved in? All those sleepless nights worrying about his rise to wealth began to claw back to life, morphing into an unsettling realization that maybe she didn't know her boy at all. Helen's thoughts spiraled. Had his success come at a cost? What kind of secrets did he keep? The phone, once a lifeline when he called for help, now felt like a trap. Would it be better to leave him to deal with whatever danger lurked at the edges of his new life? Or did she need to take the risk of getting involved? Mom? The voice cracked through the stillness. A familiar face appeared in the doorway. Marcus stood there, desperation etched deep in his features. His hair was ruffled, eyes wide and red-rimmed. Marcus! Helen gasped, her heart leaping at the sight of him but sputtering with confusion. I got your package. The journal lay open on the table, exposing the twisted truths written within. "I need you to listen," he said, stepping inside, leaving the door ajar, as if a ghost could slip in behind him. He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Everything is spiraling out of control. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was safe." "Safe from what?" she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Paranoia clung to her like a cold sweat. "From them," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "I was in over my head. This journal, it's everything. They can't find it." Helen's mind raced. "Who is they?" Marcus grabbed her by the shoulders, urgency flickering across his face. "You have to trust me. Someone is onto me. And it's all because of that damn journal. If you think I'm a stranger now, you have no idea what I'm capable of when it comes to family at that moment." A distant sound echoed, sharp and jarring, a metal clank that shattered their moment. Marcus's eyes flared wide, panic settling in. "We're not alone," he breathed. A cold dread slithered through Helen. "What do you mean?" "Mom, I need you to hide." His grip tightened, desperation burning in his eyes. "You have to hide now." Before she could respond, the door swung shut behind him with a thud, echoing through the empty house, sealing their fates in this moment of madness. The room spun. Shadows danced on the walls. Had she made a terrible mistake by welcoming him back into her life? As Marcus reached for her hand, the air thickened with uncertainty, secrets, and an overwhelming sense of dread. What had he uncovered? What darkness was chasing him? And now what would they do next? Helen knew one thing. They had crossed a line and there was no going back. But just how deep was this darkness that threatened to consume them both? Heart pounding, Helen felt the room close in around her. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but she couldn't leave Marcus. Hide? Where? Her voice trembled as she searched the room for a safe haven. Anywhere. Just not here. They'll find you. His face was pale, a ghost of the confident man she once knew. As the metal clank echoed again. Just outside the door, Helen felt her stomach drop. She glanced around, searching for somewhere to escape, but the only option was the small closet in the corner. The thought of hiding away made her skin crawl, but what choice did she have? "Mom, please. You have to trust me," Marcus urged, his eyes darting toward the door. "I do trust you, Marcus, but no buts. I'll deal with whatever is out there. Just get in." He pushed her toward the closet with an urgency that sent another wave of fear coursing through her. Before she had a chance to argue, he shoved her inside, the darkness enveloping her. The door barely closed when she heard a muffled voice outside, deep and cold. It sent chills down her spine. "Marcus," the voice growled, "you think you can hide? You don't know what you're playing with." Helen's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her back against the wall, the wood splintering slightly under her weight. Each heartbeat felt like a drum echoing in the tense silence. "I'll do whatever it takes," Marcus replied, voice strained. Panic glimmered in the effort he made to keep his tone steady. "You have to listen. I'm not afraid of you. Should V thought about the cost before you jumped, boy. It's too late now." The heaviness of the threat loomed in the air, and Helen winced, feeling like a child in a horror film waiting for the monster to strike. Then came a sound. A soft rattle. She didn't want to imagine what it was, but the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. "Marcus," she whispered, but no sound escaped her lips, swallowed up by the slippery darkness. Every second stretched painfully. The tension was so thick it felt like she could cut it with a knife. Suddenly there was a crash, the unmistakable sound of something heavy colliding with the floor. Helen's heart raced. What were they doing out there? Was Marcus fighting? Her thoughts spiraled, imagining him getting hurt or worse. "Get out of here. Now," he shouted, desperation lacing every syllable. "Marcus!" Helen almost shouted, but the word was caught in her throat just as another voice broke through the chaos. "Why don't we make this easy?" the chilling voice suggested. "Hand over the journal, and we'll leave you both unharmed." The threat chilled her right to her core. What journal? Panic washed over her. Was there more at stake than they had initially realized? "Is that what you think? That you can just walk in and take it?" Marcus's voice shook, dripping with defiance that sounded hollow amidst the dread. "I know you're not stupid, kid. You think the world you play in is safe? This isn't a game. It never was." The door rattled again, and a glimmer of light burst through the crack, illuminating the closet's shadowed corners. It seemed like the world was imploding around her. Each breath she took clawed its way up, her lungs begging for AI. Or did I? In a fit of instinctive panic, she smashed her palm against the closet door, desperation rocking her forward. Open the door! She screamed, forgetting the silence and the danger. Mom, no! Marcus's voice came muffled, full of fear. But it was too late. A figure filled the doorway, dark and looming, its silhouette etched in the faint light. And as he stepped closer, Helen's mind raced with the urgent question. What had they stumbled into, and how far were they willing to go to get out alive? The door swung open, exposing the chaos outside. Shadows wove into the room, swirling with the promise of confrontation. Helen knew it was now or never. With every ounce of courage, she stepped forward, ready to face whatever demons awaited her. The figure stood tall and imposing, the dim light bringing forth a cruel smile that twisted on his lips. Helen felt her blood run cold as she took in the sharp lines of his face, the dark hair slicked back, and the eyes that seemed to shimmer with malice. It was the face of her worst fear made flesh. What a lovely reunion we have here, he mocked, his voice smooth and dripping with mockery. Did you really think you could hide, Marcus? You should have known better. Get away from my mom, Marcus shouted, a wild defiance igniting his voice. The man stepped further into the room, taking his time as if savoring the moment. You think you're in control? You are but a pawn in a game far beyond your understanding. Give me the journal and I might just let you both live. Helen's heart raced. The journal? What journal? The word gnawed at her mind like a relentless itch. What did it contain that was so important? She stepped out from the shadows, her resolve firming in the face of ultimate danger. She couldn't just stand by and let them take what wasn't theirs. Leave him alone, she cried out, trying to sound fierce despite the quiver in her voice. Laughter burst from the man, a sound devoid of warmth. Ah, the protective mother. How adorable. But you don't comprehend the magnitude of what you're dealing with. Go. Now. Marcus shouted again, his urgency peeling back layers of her fear. The weight of his command sharpened her instincts. She felt the need to protect him, flaring. Too late, the man replied, ignoring her plea as he strutted closer. It's time to pay the piper, and he's been waiting for his dues. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the hallway, the reverberation echoing as more figures began to appear. They were shadowy and menacing, clearly not a friendly presence. Panic gripped Helen's chest, squeezing until she could barely breathe. What had her son gotten himself into? Marcus! She shouted, but the tumult around them swallowed her words. The dark figure continued to close in, and Helen could see his hands move deftly to produce a small object. A knife? No, something worse. A glint of metal flickered, reflecting the light in deadly flashes. Marcus! She screamed one last time, unable to contain the electricity of fear coursing between them. In a blur of action, Marcus lunged forward, desperation propelling him. He clashed with the intruder in a frenzy of fists and limbs. Helen felt her heart racing, torn between wanting to help and wanting to run. The shadows threatened to consume them. It felt like the walls were closing in as time slowed to a crawl. Mom, the journal. You have to find it, Marcus yelled, struggling against the man's grip. Where is it? She gasped, horror gripping her as realization dawned. She needed to get it, but where would it be? Under the floorboards, he shouted. With no time to waste, Helen tore through the closet back into the chaos, heart thundering, dread pooling in her stomach. She stumbled toward the old treewood floor, desperate fingers feeling the edges of the floorboards. Every second felt like an eternity. She raked her nails against the grimy wood, and just as she pried one loose, the sounds of struggle intensified. Helen risked a glance back. Marcus was fighting valiantly, but the odds were quickly tilting the wrong way. Then it happened. A loud thump cut through the commotion, and Helen's breath hitched. She watched in horror as a second figure joined the fray, overwhelming her son. No! She shouted and yanked the board free with raw determination, frantically retrieving a tightly bound journal beneath. What the hell is that? The first man's attention shifted, eyes locking onto her, danger brewing with each passing moment, heart racing. She clutched the journal tightly against her chest, the reality of her son's fight eclipsed by the terror of facing the demands of the men before her. Let him go, she yelled, feeling the power of an unyielding mother surge within her. But she couldn't know what this journal contained, What chains it would unbind. A price would be paid, especially when she laid her eyes on the pages tormented with secrets. Would it cost them their lives? Would it tear their already fragile bond apart? The man's eyes narrowed in on her, and Helen knew right then whatever she had stumbled upon, it was far from over. Let us see what you're really made of, he sneered as darkness enveloped them all. A single thought burned in her mind. What price would she pay to save her son? Helen's grip tightened around the journal as if it were a lifeline thrown in stormy seas. The dim light flickered, casting quick shadows that danced across the walls, amplifying her terror. The man's predatory grin twisted into something sharper. Did you think you could protect him? He spat, advancing with a calculated grace that sent her instincts into overdrive. The noise of Marcus's struggle echoed dimly in the background, but it was the piercing question of survival that drowned everything else out. Get back, she shouted, her voice straining against the rising tension. The walls felt like they were closing in. In the swirl of chaos, she noticed the blood trickling from Marcus's lip, painting his fear even deeper. Something inside her snapped, igniting a fire to match the blazed fury in her chest. Mom, don't! Marcus yelled, pushing against the man who had him pinned. Each second was like a quicksand trap, and Helen felt herself sinking in desperation. Fueled by fury, she stepped forward, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. What do you want? You think you can take my son from me? It's not about him, dear Helen, the man sneered, his eyes glittering with a dark satisfaction. It's about what lies in those pages. His voice held a taunting lilt. The jewels of malice glistened in his gaze, and it was then that Helen felt the weight of the journal pull deeper, as if it held her son's fate within those worn pages. Give it to me, he ordered, extending a hand but failing to hide the twitch of impatience brewing within him. No, Helen shouted, lifting the journal as high as she could, the pages trembling from her unsteady breath. You'll never have it. His laughter was a sound that reverberated through her bones, a dark melody echoing in the confined space. Foolish mother. You think you can stand against me? His tone turned steel and reality sharpened, making every heartbeat count. The shadows gathered close, cold and suffocating. Helen felt something shift. It was an instinct, a primal urgency, a cue that the windows of opportunity were evaporating rapidly. Marcus! She cried again, the panic in her voice lifting. She turned her attention back to him, desperate to assess the damage but obsessively aware of the man inching ever closer, each step a threat. Suddenly, a crash erupted from the hallway, and two more figures lunged into the room, a flurry of swirling coats and drawn expressions matching the intensity of the moment. The presence of new threats both terrified and invigorated her. Marcus took advantage of the momentary distraction. He twisted and threw the man from him with a surge of desperation, giving him the second he needed to escape the deadly clutches. Mom, run! He yelled, scrambling towards her. She wavered for only a second, torn between protecting the journal and their escape. We've got to go, he insisted, eyes scanning for a way out. The sound of feet pounding the floor grew as the newcomers entered the fray, joining the chaos hunting both her and her son. But Helen couldn't just flee. She couldn't be another shadow running from the dark. With a deep breath, she thrust the journal into her son's hands. Take this. I'll hold them off. She had no idea what it contained or why it mattered so much, but she knew it was their ticket to freedom. The man's snarl filled the room, fury radiating like heat. You won't get away. He howled, eyes ablaze, stepping over the remnants of the chaos. But just then, as Helen readied herself to brace against the tide of danger, the wall behind her creaked. With a thunderous crash, a hidden door swung open, revealing the murky path of escape. Go! She shouted as panic surged anew, hoping the shift in momentum was enough to let them escape, as Marcus seized her hand. Dragging her toward the opening, the shadowy figures converged behind them, and she felt the rush of air across her back, a sharp reminder that safety still lay distant. For a fleeting moment, the world narrowed to just her and Marcus, heartbeats colliding in a desperate dance against time. They couldn't let it end like this. Then one of the figures shouted her name. Helen, you can't hide. We will find you. The sentence struck her like a gunshot. Promise that loomed. What secrets did the journal hold? Why was it so crucial that they would hunt her down no matter the cost? As they stepped through the door, Leaving the hellish scene behind, Helen's pulse thumped in time with a growing dread. Where was the exit leading them? And could they ever truly escape those who sought the journal's power? The answers loomed just out of view, waiting in the shadows to be uncovered. The hidden door swung shut with a heavy thud behind them, sealing off the chaos just as the dark figures reached for the passage. For a moment, they stood in the suffocating darkness, breaths mingling with anxiety. Helen could barely see Marcus, but she felt his presence, the warm pulse of his fear radiating alongside hers. "Where are we?" he whispered, voice trembling slightly. Helen opened her mouth to reply, but the weight of uncertainty crushed her words. They were in a narrow corridor, the smell of damp stone and musty air enveloping them like a heavy blanket. She could barely formulate a plan, much less find her voice. "Just keep moving," she urged, pulling him forward, heart racing. They passed flickering light bulbs hanging overhead, the unsteady gleam making shadows dance as if mocking their fear. The hallway twisted and turned, each corridor feeling like a living thing that tightened its grip around them. The low hiss of air seemed alive, whispering threats she couldn't quite discern, echoing the growl of the man who sought the journal. Helen tightened her hold on her son's arm. "Remember what I told you, Marcus. No matter what, we stick together." He nodded, but she could see the questions swirling in his eyes. They did not know where they were headed or what waited for them beyond the next turn. The strange walls seemed to close in, and every echo whispered doubt. "Mom," he started, pausing to catch his breath. "What's so important about the journal? What's in it?" She hesitated. How could she explain? What if the truth only added to his fear? "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's dangerous. Could mean life or death for us." The weight of her words settled heavily as she spoke, filling the air with a nameless dread. Their footsteps quickened, an instinctual urgency driving them forward. Then they came upon a staircase leading upward, the polished railing glinting faintly in the flickering lights. Her heart pounded, survival instinct weaving through her. "We should go up," she said, determination flaring. "They'll expect us to run down." Marcus hesitated. "But what if they're up there? What if they know we're in here?" "We don't have time to hesitate," she pressed. The urgency in her voice shook him into compliance, and together they climbed the steps. As they reached the top, the sounds of their escape became muted, slowing their rush of adrenaline into a cautious rhythm. The door at the top appeared slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack like a lifeline. "On three," Helen murmured, her breath catching. 1, 2. Before she could finish, the door flung open with a crash, and a figure stood silhouetted against the light. Helen's heart sank. It was one of the men, fierce and unyielding. "Thought you could outrun us?" he sneered, lunging forward. A surge of instinct propelled her forward, but in her mind a single thought screamed. She had to protect Marcus at all cost. "Run!" she screamed, shoving him as hard as she could toward the staircase they had just climbed. Marcus didn't resist. He turned and bolted down the steps, fear gripping him like a vice. Helen faced the intruder, desperation distorting her resolve. "Mom!" Marcus's voice echoed back, panic clinging to his cries. Helen felt a pang of guilt, but adrenaline surged through her veins. "Get out of here!" she shouted again, this time fierce enough to wrap around her resolve. Tears threatened to spill. This battle was hers to fight, a protective barrier between her son and the encroaching darkness. The figure lunged at her. She stepped aside and slammed the door closed, heart thudding as she heard it latch. Breathing hard, her mind raced through options. Where was Marcus? Was he safe? The door rattled violently against the onslaught of the man's fury. Each sound sent ripples of panic across her skin. She was running out of time. Suddenly, the weight of her choices fell heavy. Could she outsmart him, or was this the moment she would finally slip into the abyss that had been closing around them? And just as she braced herself for the coming clash, a sound echoing from the hallway caught her attention. It was a voice, familiar but distant. "Mom! I found something." What had Marcus discovered? Was it the key to their survival or another thread tied to the chaos? Her breath caught in her throat, the world narrowing down to the relentless pounding on the door, and that flicker of hope echoing from the shadows. The truth had begun to unravel, but a storm still loomed ahead. The door continued to shudder under the weight of the intruder's relentless blows. Helen pressed her back against it, taking deep breaths as her mind raced. Marcus's voice pulled at her, a beacon in the chaos, urging her forward. Mom! I found something. What could he have found? Was it worth risking everything? She knew she had to get to him. Hold on, Marcus. With one last shove against the door, she felt a moment of calm wash over her. The man outside was formidable, but wasn't he invincible? She turned and bolted down the staircase, opening her ears for any sign of her son. Descending the steps felt like a race against time, each echoing footstep reverberating back to her through the dense shadows. The corridor that had felt suffocating moments before now opened up, granting her a measure of freedom. Marcus, where are you? She called, her voice shaking but determined. I'm right here. I went into another room. His reply was accompanied by the sound of scraping metal. Helen's pulse quickened. The memory of what dangers lay behind every door flickered ominously in her mind. She reached another door, adorned with the same aged iron as all the others. Hesitating, she placed her hand on the cold handle. Was this the way out? Or merely another trap? Mom! Be careful! His urgency electrified her resolve. Pushing the door open, she was greeted by a dim room, dust swirling in the stale air. There, in the center, Marcus was crouched over something on the ground. Look! He urged, his voice a mixture of excitement and panic. Helen's heart raced as she approached. Her eyes widened at the sight of an old box, intricate carvings peeking through the layers of dust. What is it? It was in the corner. I think it's connected to the journal. Panic surged again, but now it was laced with a glimmer of hope. We need to get out of here. If the man finds us, her voice trailed off, the imagery of confronting the dark figure making her throat constrict. Marcus opened the box carefully. Inside lay a tattered piece of parchment, faded and yellowed by time. He unfolded it, revealing a map, a hand-drawn layout of their current surroundings with a dark red X marking an exit. It could lead us to freedom, Marcus said, a tremor of enthusiasm in his voice. But as Helen looked closer, the ink seemed to pulse with an almost ominous energy. The X was distinct, juxtaposed against cryptic warnings scribbled around it, warnings of curses and shadows. I don't know, she began, doubt creeping in. It felt like a trap, a cruel joke intended to lure them deeper into danger. What if it's true? He asked, eyes wide. What if it really leads us out? Before she could respond, the door behind them rattled violently, the intruder's roars echoing through the corridor, echoing the very chaos they were trying to escape. Marcus snapped the map shut. We have to trust it, Mom. We can't stay here. They'll find us. The urgency in his plea snapped Helen fully to attention. Okay, she breathed. The decision made the risk worth taking for her son's safety. Show me the way. They turned to the map, eyes scanning the hastily jotted directions, heartbeats matching the relentless slams against the door. Time was slipping away. They had to move fast. But with every direction they studied, a heavy shadow loomed in the back of Helen's mind. What did it mean, this map? And if it truly led them to safety, what other dangers might lie ahead? Mom, Marcus pulled her from her thoughts. Let us go. As they darted toward the exit marked on the map, adrenaline coursed through Helen's veins like wildfire. They raced through the doorway, a fierce determination guiding their steps, but just as they crossed the threshold, the door behind them gave way, splintering open, and the dark figure surged into the room, eyes blazing with fury. Where do you think you're going? He growled, reaching for them. It was a race against time, but the storm of danger had only just begun. What had they unearthed, and what would it cost them to escape? The last chance for survival hung in the balance, and Helen knew they had to choose. To fight or to run. Again. Panic surged through Helen as the dark figure lunged forward. She instinctively grabbed Marcus's hand, pulling him away just as the intruder's fingers grazed the edge of her shirt. The space felt like it was closing in on them, the walls breathing down her neck, amplifying her fear. Run! She shouted, fear mixing with urgency coursing through her veins. They darted out of the room, past the shadowy figure, and into the hallway. The layout from the map flashed in her mind, but the reality was chaos, pulsing hearts, pounding feet, and the echo of their pursuer's wrath clashing with her thoughts. Left or right? Marcus shouted, his wide eyes searching hers for guidance. Left. It should take us closer to the exit. They took off down the hall, dodging shadows and dust motes dancing in the feeble light. The map smoldered in the back of her mind, its warnings a cold weight. What curses lurked behind its lines? Were her fears justified? Or was the chance at freedom worth damning them both? Each step was a gamble. The doorways along the corridor loomed like hungry mouths, and she could almost hear them whispering secrets of despair, reminding her of the darkness that lay beyond. The intruder-esque guttural screams echoed behind them, a relentless predator scenting its prey. "Mom, is he still coming?" Marcus stuttered between breaths, looking back, a shadow of terror in his eyes. "I don't know. Just keep going." She tightened her grip on his hand. They reached another door, its surface splintered and ancient, yet it was their only option. As they hurled themselves inside, she slammed it shut behind them. The room was musty, filled with the stale scent of mold. A broken window high above allowed only glimpses of moonlight to spill onto the floor, illuminating dusty shelves lined with strange, unrecognizable relics. "Do you think we're safe?" Marcus asked, panting and wide-eyed, clearly struggling to mask his fear. Helen couldn't answer. She focused on the door. Every squeak of the wood felt like a countdown. They had to move before their pursuer caught up. Her gaze fell on an old chest nestled in the corner. "What is that?" Marcus asked, tilting his head toward the chest. "It looks like a storage box. Maybe we'll find something useful inside." With trembling hands, she tugged at the rusty latch. It gave way with a loud clank. Inside lay a ragged collection of old clothes, dusty books, and what looked like an ancient lockbox. "Help me with this," she urged Marcus. They pried it open, revealing an array of strange symbols carved into the wood. "What are these?" he whispered, leaning closer. "I don't know," she admitted. But as she touched the symbols, a chill raced up her spine. It felt wrong, like the air had thickened with dread. Mom Marcus's voice dropped to a hushed tone. A crash echoed outside, rattling the door. Her heart raced. Her intuition screamed they had to get out. "We can't stay here." Racing back to the door, she paused, feeling the weight of the moment press against her. "Marcus, do you trust me?" "Of course." "Then we're leaving this now." She pushed open the door, adrenaline surging again. They sprinted back into the hallway, only to see the figure looming at the opposite end, blocking their route with a predatory stance. "Run." It was no longer just a word. It became their truth. Helen yanked Marcus's arm, twirling them around toward another corridor. As they ran, the map once more burned in her mind, a beacon leading them to salvation. But what if it led them right where the darkness intended? "Tighten up," Helen barked. But even as they sped forward, she couldn't help but wonder, were they running toward freedom, or deeper into the shadows that sought to consume them whole? The pounding footsteps behind them grew nearer, but so did the flicker of hope found in the fading ink of their map. Could it be their salvation, or would it only draw them closer to their doom? The door ahead swung open under a violent push, and a shaft of light sliced through the gloom. Together they jumped toward the unknown, but what awaited them on the other side? The blinding light engulfed them as they stumbled through the doorway, the sudden brightness prompting them to shield their eyes. Helen's heart raced, confusion swirling in her mind. Were they truly free? Or had they just stepped into another trap? As the room came into focus, she realized they were in a vast open courtyard. The cool night air felt refreshing against her skin, contrasting sharply with the suffocating atmosphere of the hallways they'd escaped. Dimly lit lanterns hung from the ancient stone walls, casting flickering shadows that danced along the ground. "Mom, where are we?" Marcus gasped, his voice trembling as he scanned their surroundings. I don't know. Just stay close to me," she breathed, straining to listen for any signs of their pursuer. Judged by the silence, maybe they had thrown him off. But how long would that last? In the distance, Helen could see a sprawling garden, overgrown and wild, and at the far end, a gated exit that glittered with metal bars. Hope surged in her chest. If they could just reach that gate, they might be able to escape this nightmare. "Move," she urged, grasping Marcus's hand tightly once more. As they began to navigate the courtyard, every rustle of leaves or distant creak felt amplified, making each heartbeat sound like a drum. She couldn't escape the feeling that they were still being hunted, just waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Look," Marcus pointed towards a dark figure emerging from the shadows of the garden, the shape unmistakably human. Her stomach twisted in knots. "Stay behind me," Helen ordered, instinctively protecting her son. The figure stepped closer, revealing more detail: a woman dressed in a flowing black gown, her long hair spilling like ink across her shoulders. There was something almost ethereal about her presence, an otherworldly calm that felt out of place in the chaos surrounding them. "Help us!" Helen cried, desperation slipping into her voice. "Please, we're being chased." The woman's expression remained neutral, her piercing gaze scanning the shadows. "You're not safe here. He will follow you into the light." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, peeking from behind Helen, eyes wide. Just then the ground roared beneath them. A chilling laughter echoed across the courtyard, slicing through the tension like a knife. The figure they had run from emerged, a dark mass of fury and malevolence, and began to advance towards them. "Run!" the woman shouted suddenly, her voice slicing through the creeping silence. Without waiting for a second invitation, Helen turned on her heel, gripping Marcus tightly as they dashed toward the gate. Panic surged once again, deep and raw as they ran, the darkness gaining on them with every step. The gate loomed closer, yet dread pulled at Helen's mind. What lay beyond? Was this truly their escape or another cage? Just as they reached the gate, the dark figure lunged, a ragged breath escaping its lips. Helen's heart pounded against her ribs as her hand gripped the gate's cold handle, and she twisted it. The gate swung open, then silence fell. Everything went black. When the world returned, they were gone from the courtyard. But where were they now? "Mom?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper, filled with confusion and fear. The air felt thick with anticipation, and a cold dread crept back into the pit of Helen's stomach. She clenched her fists, fighting against the overwhelming awareness that they had just stepped into something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. Had they escaped one nightmare only to plunge into another? In the suffocating darkness, a flicker of light appeared ahead. As they trudged towards it, Helen could only wonder, was this a way out, or the beginning of their most harrowing ordeal yet? The light grew brighter as they pressed forward, illuminating a clearing that seemed impossibly tranquil compared to the chaos they had just escaped. Helen squinted, trying to make sense of their bizarre surroundings. At first glance it looked like a serene park, the kind you might find on a sunny afternoon, birds chirping and the smell of fresh grass wafting through the air. "Is this real?" Marcus muttered, his voice trembling as they emerged from the darkness. Helen could see a path winding through the trees ahead, and something deep inside her whispered that this was no accident. It was too perfect. For every moment they felt safe, the dread swirled within her like a storm. "We can't let our guard down now," she replied softly, glancing around to make sure they weren't being followed. "Where do we go?" "Just keep walking," Helen said. "That way, toward the light." As they made their way down the path, every step felt heavier than the last. The trees loomed, their branches stretching like grasping fingers. The map rattled in the back of her mind, a bitter reminder that they should have trusted it. Almost like it had been designed to challenge them. "Mom, what about the journal?" Marcus asked suddenly. His words twisted her heart, reminding her of the dangerous dance they had been performing. "I have it," she replied, her voice a whisper. The journal felt like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. How had a piece of paper come to court their fate? Marcus stopped, his eyes shimmering with fear. What if we're still being hunted? What if they find us here? Looking into her son's eyes, Helen felt her own resilience unraveling. She reached for his hand once more. "We'll figure it out together. We won't let them win." With renewed urgency they hurried along the path, each sound amplified in their heightened state. But just as they rounded the bend, their hearts sank as they saw the ghostly figure of the woman from before. Her dark dress flowed like smoke, an unsettling calmness surrounding her. "Help us," Marcus urged desperately. "Please." The woman's piercing gaze met Helen's. "You've journeyed far, but there is still chaos within you." The air crackled with an unspoken truth, as if she could see the shadows they carried from the nightmares they'd fled. "We don't want chaos," Helen protested. "We just want to be free." A haunting smile crossed the woman's face. "Freedom comes at a price. You must confront what you have unearthed." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, stepping closer despite Helen's protests. Before the woman could answer, the ground trembled beneath their feet once more. The figure they thought they left behind appeared, an angry silhouette illuminated by the strange light that filled the clearing. Helen felt their hopes collapsing under the weight of despair. You thought you could escape? His voice growled, rattling her resolve. That you could hide from the consequences of your actions? Terror gripped her heart. What do you want? That cursed journal, he spat, advancing toward them. Hand it over and your lives may remain intact. It felt as if the walls began to close in, panic bubbling over within her. They had come too far to lose everything. With every ounce of courage, she pulled the journal from her bag and held it out, her hand steadying though her heart raced. Just take it and leave us alone, she shouted. The sinister figure halted, eyes narrowing. You misunderstand. The journal holds not just information but power. You have no idea what lies within. What do you mean? Marcus cried, peering at the journal. What are you talking about? Together you must make a choice, the woman interjected, her voice weaving through the chaos. You can use the journal's power to confront him, but it will change everything. Helen's mind raced, options flashing through her head. She looked at Marcus, seeing the uncertainty flicker across his features. Could she risk all their lives further? The price for freedom seemed insurmountable. With trembling hands she nodded. Together, they held the journal tightly, the shadows pressed close, an oppressive weight. The intruder advanced one last time, lips curling with menace. You think facing shadows will save you? If it means protecting my son, I'll do anything, Helen replied, the fire igniting in her chest. The woman stepped closer, her demeanor shifting from uncertainty to support. You have the power to reshape what you believe is reality. But you must work in unison, wield it with purpose. Together they focused on the journal, drawing from its energy, feeling the power coursing through them. Helen and Marcus stood firm, a united front against the encroaching darkness. Now, the woman commanded, and with every ounce of strength, they shouted in unison, we choose to fight. A shockwave of energy exploded from the journal, enveloping the clearing in a brilliant light. The dark figure stumbled back, the shadows around him shattering like glass. For a brief moment everything froze, the air, the chaos, the fear. And then with a roar of energy, the light dissipated the darkness, sweeping away the figure like the receding tide. When the blinding glow faded, the woman stood before them, a smile of pride illuminating her face. You have faced your shadows and won. You are free. As the weight of those words crashed into them, Helen wrapped her arms around Marcus, tears flowing freely as relief washed over her. Mom, we did it. His voice spilled over, disbelief transitioning into joy. They were no longer trapped in someone else's nightmare. They were free. But the price had never been without consequence. The journal, still glowing faintly, lay in her hands, its secrets now theirs to hold. They would learn and they would grow. Together, with a final glance back at the woman, Helen felt a sense of gratitude pulse through her. Whatever journey lay ahead, they would face it together as they stepped forward into the world beyond. Hand in hand, Helen knew one thing. They were ready to embrace whatever came next together. And now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support and smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What would you have done? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.